everyone, so I thought that I would do the palette tag. This was going around a couple of months ago. A couple of people commented and said that they would like to see the video. I believe this one was created by Samantha March, pretty sure. And I don't think anybody specifically tagged me. So if you made a video on the palette tag and you did tag me, please let me know so I can go check out your videos. I'm very behind on videos and YouTube keeps recommending things from like 2013 in my recommendations, so I never know what's going on anymore. Anyway, there are a few little categories to show various types of palettes, so I thought that I would just dive in. If you are wondering about this, this is from my last video. My cousins asked me to do a mermaid inspired makeup, so if you want to see this whole thing come together, it's in that previous video. But anyway, the first question, it's not really a question, it's a category. Show your newest palette. So my newest palette is from Beauty. This was sent to me actually. I'm still shocked that any brand still sends me stuff. So I was floored to receive anything, and this is so beautiful. Just the assortment of colors and the swirls with shades. I didn't know how it was going to work, to be honest. When I looked at it, I was like, this kind of could be kind of questionable. Now, there are 3 shades that are more like pressed glitters. This pink shade, this beautiful beige shade, which has like a big dip in it, because that's the one I've used the most, and the green. They do require a little patience, and they can kind of rain down my face a little bit, but these swirly shades, as I shall call them, like this top one here that has beige and pink and brown in it, ends up being this sort of soft, shimmery peach color. And this other one that's beige and brown mostly is kind of this nice, muted, almost taupe color, kind of a little bit cool toned, or cooler. So not only is this palette just beautiful aesthetically to look at, but it really does perform very well. And this has been a palette that I've been using a lot recently when I put on makeup. Now there's like 2 palettes I've used a lot recently, and by a lot I mean maybe once a week. I really haven't put on a whole lot of makeup since like the end of April. And yeah, this is really beautiful. I don't really hear a lot of people talk about Beauty. I know that they're, you know, a more affordable option, but this is like one of the best, more affordable eyeshadow palettes that I've ever used. So I feel very fortunate and very grateful to Beauty for this. For my oldest palette, I really had to think about this, and I was going through my palette drawer and I was looking and trying to decide what was the oldest thing. I figure that it's probably this guy, and this is the Naked 2 Basics from Urban Decay. I think it's this palette simply because when I was in my Urban Decay phase, I bought everything. So I would have bought this palette, you know, the day it was released, basically. And I already panned the Basics 1 and repurchased it, so I knew that the repurchase of the Basics 1 would have came after the purchase of the Basics 2. So I have decluttered a lot of my Urban Decay eyeshadow palettes, which were the oldest things I had purchased in general, so I don't have a whole lot left, but this is the one that I believe is the oldest in my collection. Show your most expensive palette. I'm gonna say it's this guy, the Natasha Denona Metropolis palette. Yes, I have a few Natasha Denona eyeshadow palettes, and I think they're all relatively the same price, but just with inflation and exchange rate, I think this one ended up being the most expensive, and honestly, probably the least used out of the large palettes, especially since I started rearranging the palettes. This is a really beautiful fall color scheme though. I did buy this in October, so I feel like I will use this a lot more in this fall. I also just haven't worn a lot of makeup in the last couple of months, so I really want to get into the golds and stuff again. I realized I missed having those kind of shades on my eyes. I also really want bronze shades. If anybody watched my Franken shadow video, that's what I was going on about loving bronze shadows and wanting bronze shadows, and then Natasha Denona goes and comes out with a bronze palette. Every single time I talk about liking something, if it's gold eyeshadow or gold and green shadows and gold and blue, she comes out with a palette. If I talk about liking, being specifically inspired by Biba makeup looks, she comes out with a Biba palette. When I talk about being inspired by the 60s makeup, 60s eyeshadow, that kind of colors, she comes out with a mini retro. So people often question why I am so into Natasha Denona stuff, and that's why. It's because she is creating the stuff that I want at the exact time that I want it. You know, I feel like we view like eyeshadow, at least, in a similar sort of way. So like I connect with her creation and her vision, I guess, if that makes sense. My most, I was gonna say the least expensive, but the most affordable palette, so that's a better way of putting it. This is Depotted, but this is the Yes Please palette from ColourPop. I would say this is the most affordable thing I have in my collection. I don't have a lot, unfortunately. That is my cross to bear. But the ColourPop eyeshadow palettes are very affordable and fantastic. So this is a really beautiful palette, a really beautiful color scheme. Some of my favorite shadows. So for an everyday palette, I go back and forth between a few things. I mentioned the new palette, the Pop Beauty one. Still trying to pan the Modern Renaissance, but you know, I have stepped back from that when I was going pretty intensely, and I actually will show that palette for a different category. But I thought that I would just mention the Natasha Denona Mini Retro palette, since this is a relatively new thing to me and something that I haven't been able to talk about on my channel just yet. This was a birthday present from my boyfriend. I was just going on and on and on and on about it. He was like, would you like it? Don't buy it for yourself. I said something about making it a Sephora order when I had to repurchase a couple things, and he was like, please say you're not buying that palette. No, because he just heard me talk about how much I loved it, and he saw all my Instagram posts about it, so he purchased it for me for my birthday. So I put it aside, and I was planning on doing a video, like a first impressions kind of thing, and then I was just, you know, not feeling the greatest after my father passed away, so I thought that I would just use it for myself. And it's kind of become just a simple everyday thing. This shade right here, that would be the shade Industrial, is so good. That sort of green, silver, all those beautiful specks of color in there. I like to do a black eyeliner base and then put that on top of it, and it's just simple, smudgy, one of my absolute favorite things. So that has definitely become an everyday palette for me. My most colorful palette should probably come as no surprise, Viseart Editorial Brights palette. It is nothing but color. I suppose you maybe don't consider the white shade, but it's the most colorful thing I own that's actually just, you know, in a straight up palette form. It is one of my absolute favorite things for colorful looks. I go between the Viseart Editorial Brights and the Color Green Vivid Pigments. I really only have those two when it comes to color things, but I don't feel the need to purchase more. That's the thing about them. They were relatively expensive, each thing, and to get it to me and the cost of shipping and everything else, but so worth it. So worth it. I can't imagine needing, let alone wanting, another set of colorful shadows. This does it all. For smallest palette, I'm just going to show another little mini Natasha Denona. This is the Mini Gold palette, so just like comparison's sake, this is another palette I'm going to show in a minute, but like this is the full-size chocolate bar kind of palette, and the Mini Gold is pretty small. It doesn't necessarily look that small when you're just holding it, but when you compare it to something else, you can see size-wise, it really is quite tiny. And it has much smaller eyeshadow pans, but it is most definitely worth its weight in gold, so to speak. For biggest palette, how could I not mention this ginormous thing from Morphe? This is the 3502. I have the 3500, the like original one, and I have the 3502, and the 3502 is darker. And whenever I talk about Morphe and these palettes, people are always like, you were just talking about Natasha Denona, like you actually use Morphe. I actually do. I do really like the metallic formula of the Morphe eyeshadows. I find the mattes to be a little particular. They're a little too fussy for me. It's more similar to ABH formula-wise, which is very soft and I don't like, but the mattes are terrific. So I have the same sort of feelings towards Morphe as I do Anastasia, just, you know, eyeshadow quality-wise. So some of these shades in here, some of these golden shades are some of the best gold shades, and you know, it's not very well used, but Some of my makeup isn't very well used, although I have used it a lot. There's a difference between using something a lot and then using something with the intention of panning it and like using almost too much product or using an extreme amount of product. The next thing is show your palette with the best memory. So, okay, this is going to be the chocolate bar palette. I actually struggled a little bit thinking about a palette with the best memory because most of them had some sort of thing attached to them that would be like, this was a good thing, but oh wait, now I remember this happened too. Some of the things were related to my personal life, some of the things related to YouTube, where I was like, yeah, I remember really liking that video, but oh, that was the same time that, you know, this incident happened and it ended up taking a little bit of the shine away. So the chocolate bar palette was sent to me and that was really amazing. There was a little brief window in time when I received some product from Too Faced, which was very, very cool and something I never thought would happen. And I actually ended up buying a couple of the gold palettes myself to give away to people. When I could afford it, I used to do sort of secret surprise giveaways. Mostly it was stuff that wasn't advertised, and I would just contact people who had left comments on my videos and be like, hey, you mentioned, you know, like last week or 2 weeks ago or whatever, that you would like to someday have X eyeshadow palette. Can you send me an email or send me a DM or something? And I never did it on like a recent video because I knew people would then maybe kind of jump on it. I always went back to an older video that probably wouldn't have any traffic anymore, just so I could ask that person to, you know, contact me and I could send. And I've sent palettes and stuff all over the world. It's so cool. I love being able to do that. Like, I wish I could afford to do that again. So that's a good memory for me. Like, I look at this palette and it's not about the shadow itself, but it's just about the memories with it, because I remember using it in a couple of videos and having a couple of people be like, I really wish I could afford that, and I was happy to be able to make some other people happy. So that was a really nice memory. A palette worth the hype. I'm going to say, oh wait, I don't actually have a palette worth the hype. Oh, I don't have it in front of me because I'm actually going to just talk about the Natasha Denona Gold palette. My palette is rearranged right now, so it doesn't actually have the shadows in it that reflect the gold palette. So I thought I would just show a picture of it instead. The gold palette is 100% worth the hype. I find that the formula is everything Natasha is good for. The mattes are creamy and they blend well. You don't have any patchiness or nothing skips. And the metallic shades in their various forms like sparkles and duochromes, they all perform exactly the way you would hope a like $150 plus eyeshadow palette would. They are perfect, and to me that eyeshadow palette is worth the hype. Also, it has exact colors that I love, so maybe I'm a little biased because golds and blue greens, some of my absolute favorite shadows to wear just in general, but I absolutely think it's worth the hype. And what's not worth the hype for me though, the Hooter Beauty little Obsessions palette. So I bought the Emerald Obsessions palette and I was so excited for it because I thought, so beautiful, look at those colors. Like, I was so excited for this concept, these little palettes with 9 pans of eyeshadow that weren't massive, that just felt really compact, so many different color schemes. And then I used this and it was horrible. I just had such a nightmare with the glitter shades, like any of the metallic shades just melting down my face. So most of these shades are sort of glittery, sparkly, they've got some sort of sheen to it, and within an hour, maybe 2 hours, I would have no eyeshadow left like around my actual eye area. It would all be like down my cheek a little bit, underneath my eye. It was just such a mess. So I will still use this palette. I will mostly use it for like taking pictures and stuff for Instagram or for YouTube videos where I know I'm going to have it on my eye for a very short amount of time. That's what works for me. Show your favorite palette for my favorite brand. So I've already talked about Natasha Denona so much. I'm going to talk about another favorite, Urban Decay. So this is the Naked palette, and this is definitely my favorite palette from Urban Decay. I love this color story so much. I find it so easy to use. All the shadows go so well together. I know there's been some issues with like the quality of some of these darker matte shades, but for me it works so well. I guess I'm fortunate that way that I don't need that much pigmentation, but I could always use these shadows on their own paired with these metallic shades, and it works very well for me. So I absolutely love the Naked Heat palette, and despite, you know, kind of falling out of love with the Urban Decay brand overall, I still always have a soft place for those eyeshadows. And the last category is show your most used palette. So I thought that I would just go ahead and show the Modern Renaissance palette. So I had been all excited to do an update. I think there's at least one more shadow that I had hit pan on for my update. And I have my Franken shadows over here. I did a whole video on the Franken shadow process and how I decided to come up with these sort of different creations and my method and everything else, if you are interested in that. But I think this is my most used palette, considering a lot of these shades were used or half used, and then I even just created new shades. And it's very, very beat up and very well loved, well used, and I will hopefully continue to use it. So anyway, that's everything for the palette tag. I love talking about eyeshadow so much, so let me know if you'd like to see anything done with any of these palettes, if you'd like to see any specific videos, or if you'd like to see other tag videos even. Please let me know. I have been out of the loop for a little while, so I'm not sure what's going on, but if any of your favorite creators have done any kind of tag videos or even just sort of content that you would like to see me kind of do from my perspective, please let me know. I would really love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching and for spending some time with me today. I really truly appreciate it. I hope we get a chance to chat soon. Bye for now.